Hello, and welcome to Flying Failures, where we'll be looking at the Heinkel He 177 Greif. The Greif, or Griffin, was the only long-range heavy bomber deployed for the Luftwaffe during World War II, but within its short career would prove to be a machine that was barely flyable, and appeared as if it had been actively designed to kill its occupants. In the 1930s, the Luftwaffe's Chief of Staff, Lieutenant General Walter Wever, championed the development of a heavy bomber, believing that such an aircraft would prove a decisive factor in a future European conflict, his demands being for a bomber capable of carrying a heavy load over distances sufficient to permit an assault on any part of the British Isles, thereby compensating for the comparative weakness of the German Kriegsmarine by harassing British shipping far out in the Atlantic. Prototypes of two four-engined heavy bombers, the Junkers Ju-89 and the Dornier Do-19, were built under his tutelage, but with Wever's death in an air crash in 1936, further development of these aircraft was abandoned, while Wever's successors favoured smaller medium-range bombers along the lines of the Heinkel He 111. Despite Wever's death, the Heinkel Flugzeugwerke received a specification for a new bomber from the German Air Ministry in 1936. This aircraft would be capable of carrying a 2,200-pound bomb load over a range of 3,100 miles at a maximum speed of 311 miles an hour, enabling it to outrun contemporary interceptors, Heinkel ultimately receiving instructions during June 1937 to proceed with construction of a full-scale mock-up. Heinkel estimated that its aircraft could reach a top speed of 342 miles an hour at a ceiling of 18,050 feet, and have a loaded weight of 59,500 pounds, with Heinkel's chief designer, Siegfried Gunther, believing that several revolutionary features would have to be incorporated into the design so as to make such performance possible, including a pair of 1,973 horsepower engines, though at this time no engine was capable of achieving such a power output. The aircraft's advanced features included coupled power plants with surface evaporation cooling, which was still an unproven concept, the coupled power plants bringing together two liquid-cooled engines mounted side by side in a single nacelle with a single gear casing connecting the two crankcases, which would then drive a single air-screw shaft gear, the use of two engines of large output in a heavy bomber being considered aerodynamically sound. The coupled power unit also avoided the delay associated with the development of a new high-powered engine, and the first prototypes were equipped with two counter-rotating Daimler-Benz DB606A power plants. For aerodynamics, Gunther wished to dispense with the usual system of drag-producing engine radiators, and employed an evaporative cooling system, where the coolant water was pressurized, thus raising its boiling point, with the superheated water, as it left the engine, entering an expansion area where the pressure dropped and the water flashed to steam, this steam being cooled as it flowed through pipes running along the outer skin of the fuselage and wings. It was determined, however, that such a cooling system would not be capable of dealing with the vast amount of heat generated by each pair of engines, and therefore the evaporative cooling system had to be abandoned in favor of conventional radiators fitted directly beneath each propeller, adding significantly to the weight and drag. For armament, Gunther's design called for outfitting the He 177 with three cockpit-controlled remote gun turrets and a single manned position in the tail, these remotely controlled turrets allowing the gunner to be placed in a protected position with excellent observation, where he would be less likely to be blinded by the flash of his own guns. Unfortunately, technical progress proved insufficient to keep pace with the He 177's development, and as a result, the aircraft had to be modified to accommodate larger and heavier manned positions, each fitted with a single 13mm gun. In November 1937, Luftwaffe dive-bombing expert Ernst Udet presented the Luftwaffe's dive-bombing requirement to Ernst Heinkel, who responded that the aircraft would never be capable of achieving such performance, though in spite of this, the He 177 was required to be strengthened to support the stresses imposed by the pull-out from a dive, though by this point, the gross weight of the bomber had increased so alarmingly that providing an undercarriage of sufficient strength became a serious problem. In November 1939, the first He 177 prototype was flown, presenting an empty weight of 30,247 pounds. While loaded, it would reach 52,734 pounds, the maiden flight being terminated prematurely after only 12 minutes when the engines began to overheat, thus necessitating several modifications to the prototype, including a 20% increase in the tail surface area, after which the second prototype made its first sortie into the sky, though due to severe control flutter, this machine would disintegrate in mid-air. From there on, prototype after prototype would be lost in various accidents related to the mechanics of the aircraft, with the fourth prototype, while undergoing stability tests over the Baltic, failing to recover from a shallow dive and thus crashed into the sea, with the partially salvaged wreck indicating that the loss was the result of a malfunction of the airscrew pitch gear. For the fifth prototype, this incorporated a number of trial installations, including triple bomb bays and hand-operated 7.9mm machine guns in the nose turret immediately after the flight deck, in the nose of the ventral gondola, and in the tail, though during a simulated low-level attack in early 1941, both of the prototype's power plants burst into flames, causing the aircraft to hit the ground and explode. The sixth prototype was the first example to be equipped with production-type 2,700 horsepower DB606 engines, presenting a maximum speed of 289 miles an hour, a service ceiling of 22,966 feet, and a range of 3,417 miles, though the design led to poor access to the engines, thus resulting in a lack of routine maintenance in the field, leading to multiple in-flight engine fires. The initial lot of 35 pre-production aircraft was employed in a wide variety of trials, and although the bomber was still considered dangerous because of engine fires, most of the pilots expressed favorable opinions concerning handling qualities and general performance. Ultimately, while the bomber's teething problems were still largely unresolved by the spring of 1942, the Luftwaffe's commander-in-chief, Hermann Göring, demanded delivery of He-177s to enable the Luftwaffe to destroy the British fleet, trials with the prototypes and pre-production aircraft dictating continued modifications, though this led to a substantial number of those aircraft being lost in accidents and crashes. In all, a total of 130 He-177A-1 bombers were manufactured by June 1943, but attempts to employ the aircraft operationally met with little success, while 6 were used for testing with the Heinkel HS-293 radio-controlled missile. The He-177A-1's forward fuselage housed a crew of 4, a pilot, co-pilot, navigator and gunner, while the tail housed a second gunner, the A-1's maximum speed being 317 miles an hour and its range being 3,480 miles, while a bomb load of 2,200 pounds could be conveyed into combat, far less than the American B-17's 4,800 pounds and the B-24's 8,000 pounds. While production of the He-177A-1 was underway, Heinkel introduced an improved variant, the He-177A-3. This new version, including an additional dorsal turret, mounted midway between the trailing edge of the main plane and the leading edge of the tail plane, this turret containing 2 13mm guns, while a new power plant consisted of a pair of DB605 engines that produced a maximum output of 2,950 horsepower. In the autumn of 1942, the 3rd Squadron of the Kampfgeschwader 4's Group 1 began converting to He-177s, but the conversion was extremely slow due to a shortage of aircraft, eventually resulting during early 1943 in the 1st and 2nd Squadrons being formed of the newly arrived He-177A-3s. In the meantime, Kampfgeschwader 50 received 20 He-177A-1s for conversion training, and its Group 1 was hurriedly trained on the A-3 prior to its redesignation to Fernkampfgeschwader 2, which was subsequently rushed to southern Russia in order to fill the role of transports flying supplies to the trapped 6th Army at Stalingrad, during which the unit suffered an average loss of 1 aircraft per day due to crashes, its strength falling so rapidly that, in February 1943, the surviving machines were withdrawn. In April 1943, a variant of the A-3 model was introduced with an improved electrical system, a modified gun mount in the nose of the ventral gondola, an upgraded cannon, and a redesigned tail gun position, this aircraft being the first to carry the HS-293 missile, with two mounted under the wings and another under the fuselage. The first He-177A-5s left the assembly line in February 1943, and by July, the production rate of 6 planes a month was doubled and then increased to 42 a month, yielding a grand total of 415 delivered for 1943. In October 1943, He-177 assets were organized to participate in Operation Steinbock, marking the debut of the He-177 over Britain, this operation being prepared at the direct order of Adolf Hitler as a reprisal against London, the Luftwaffe's Supreme Command redeploying units from Italy to Russia as bombers, while in addition to He-177s, the core of the attack force also employed 80 He-111s, Do-217s, Ju-88s, and Ju-188s. The London attacks began on January 21, 1944, though while Operation Steinbock would be regarded as a failure due to the decimation of the medium bombers, the He-177s achieved some success, with only 4 examples lost to enemy action, this modest performance being countered by a severe lack of serviceability due to mishaps. One notable example of the He-177's atrocious reliability came when, on a single night, 8 of the 13 He-177s deployed against London had to return to base due to overheating or engine fires, with only 4 of the remaining units actually reaching their target, the aircraft's failure to achieve the desired results, leading to the cancellation of Operation Steinbock in early March 1944. While production of the He-177A-5 had proceeded, several improved versions of the Greif evolved, including the He-177A-6, which had begun development in early 1944, though the constant flow of modifications resulting from frontline complaints delayed plans to the point that, instead of 15 He-177A-6s ready for delivery by the end of May 1944, only 6 were completed, the He-177A-6 program subsequently being abandoned in favor of the He-277, which was also known as the He-177B. In January 1944, 5 He-177A-5s were equipped with batteries of 33 obliquely mounted 210mm rocket tubes, largely derived from components of the Naval-Werfer infantry barrage rocket system, thus creating the Großerstörer, the objective of these machines being to break up and destroy the combat box formations of American daylight bombers. Limited operational trials against American bombers were authorized, with the mode of operation calling for the aircraft to follow the bomber formations, pass below and then to port, the result being only a few daylight operations flown, but no contact was made with Allied bomber formations, and as American escort fighters were becoming more numerous, the scheme was abandoned. Until 1943, the Air Ministry remained adamant in its refusal to permit any major redesign to the basic He-177A, but during a meeting with members of the German aircraft industry, Hitler directed creation of a bomber capable of attacking London by day and night from beyond the reach of Allied interceptors, and capable of attacking Allied convoys in the Atlantic, Ernst Heinkel claiming that his He-177B could fulfill these requirements and was instructed to proceed with immediate development. A standard He-177A-3 R2 airframe was quickly modified for the use of 4 DB603A engines, with flight tests commencing in late 1943, and, to hide the effort from Goering and the Air Ministry, the machine was referred to as the He-177B-0, a second prototype, which utilized a converted He-177A-5 airframe, being flown on February 28, 1944, with the test pilots reporting exceptional handling. The B-5's defensive armament comprised a 7.9mm machine gun in the nose, interchangeable with a 15mm or 20mm cannon, 4 machine guns in the chin barbette, twin guns in the forward dorsal barbette, 1 gun in the rear dorsal turret, and 4 guns in the tail, though despite Goering's order to begin production of the He-277B immediately, the bomber program was abandoned on July 3, 1944, and only 8 He-277Bs were produced. In the end, the He-177's development resulted in too many variants, with a total of 1,137 He-177s being produced, including prototypes and pre-production aircraft, though eventually only 200 He-177s became operational, with more units being lost to engine fires than to combat. The aircraft's technical difficulties were due in part to the overly optimistic design requirements, including extended range, a high speed, a heavy bomb load, and dive bombing capabilities, the outcome being a machine that, while entering operation from 1942, was still far from suitable for frontline use by the end of the war. In summary, the Heinkel He 177 was a machine more deadlier to its crews than to its enemies, though despite its terrible record, it did have the distinction of being the only heavy German bomber to attain quantity production during the war, as well as being only one of a few German combat aircraft that progressed from prototype to operational service within the span of the conflict.